All right, let's get our Facebook folks in here before it's time to start the show. And we're spinning the wheel there as we are good to go. 1 and 2. All right, welcome in, welcome in. It is Monday morning, the 4th, and it's time for an episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am Nick Kendell, and joined by, as always, Scott Kennedy. Scott, how you doing? Are you still vibing from the underwear Olympics that this week in Indy? I gotta say, having covered the combine for Mile High Huddle 3 times when I lived back in the Midwest, I always get a little bit of FOMO when I am seeing everybody having a good time out there. Covering it and having the fans there. What a different atmosphere it was this year. I mean, the electricity and the drills and whatnot was a lot of fun. But my big takeaway, let's keep it in Indy. I know people want to move it to Reno or LA or I don't know where, Dallas. It doesn't make sense. It's perfect in Indy. There's no place that's so walkable that has the medical facility and the conference center and the stadium right there. Don't fix what's not broken. It's working. Keep it there.
It's kind of like the Detroit Lions. Why are the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving? Why do they get that game? Because they took it when no one else wanted it, and now they get rewarded for it the same way. Now it's a big thing in Indianapolis. Keep it in Indy. Yeah. It's a big thing. I'm old enough to remember though when that thing was closed. They guarded that thing like they were guarding Fort Knox with secrets in there, and there's some guys that made a pretty good name for themselves by being able to get information out of there and leaking it out and getting the results out. And that became a big deal. Now it's televised. The league was like, wait, we can make a ton of money on this thing. What are we doing? Yeah, money. The numbers get out anyway. Who cares? So I'm much prefer the way they do it now because it used to be behind closed doors.
Wait, did you say money? No, that's what the owners all said. We can make more. We got David Youngkin in here. Good morning to you. I see Dylan Von Arx is sick at home. Feel better, Dylan. We got Corey coming in.
Glad you're here. I didn't see that. So welcome to Broncos for Breakfast, Dylan. We're glad you're here today.
Corey Johnson with the cute cat pick there. We are fans of the pets both in Scott and I's house. Says, do you worry about JJ McCarthy's tiny hands? So McCarthy came in with 9-inch hands. I was a little bit surprised to see his hands that small. I think it's, what is that, Scott? Probably like the 12th to 23rd percentile. So it's not Kenny Pickett range where he was like the 3rd percentile with like 8.5 inch, but 9 is small. But McCarthy coming in over 220 pounds. I mean, that was the big concern with him. I know that he probably, had to relieve himself immediately after that, carrying that water weight that he had there. But at least he still went out there and did some of the drills and tested, unlike Bowers, who, weighed 243 and then, showed up on the sideline in sweats. But yeah, McCarthy, the hands do worry me a tad, but I think the weight being that high is a bigger benefit to him than the hands being 9 inches.
Well, and 6'8" on the L cone, and what was it, 4'1" on the shuttle? It was his L cone number at 6'8" would have put him 4th among the wide receivers at 220 pounds.
He's switched up, man.
This is an athlete who could play wide receiver, who is an NFL caliber athlete at wide receiver. No, I'm not too worried about the 9-inch hands. He can grip a ball.
And the Denver is going to play outside, but I do think that the NFL in general is moving more towards retractable roofs and domes, which I don't love, but I mean, it's you can have more events then, right? Make more money. It's money at the end of the day. So that's
been good for Atlanta. I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
when they put the Georgia Dome started, you end up with an Olympics, you end up with SEC championship game, Super Bowls, and then they put in $1 billion retractable roof, and that place is a palace. I'll tell you that much. I like the outdoor stuff too, so I don't mind the retractable roof. Having a dome in the Southeast was purely for external events because falls in the South are absolutely freaking gorgeous. And then to go inside for football just felt wrong. Now at least it's, kind of outdoors.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, you have Joe Burrow with the 9-inch hands. There's Jared Goff also with the 9-inch hands. I'll have to go back and look at the fumble data with McCarthy. Now, granted, there's so few dropbacks that's maybe a question in terms of sample size, but it's definitely not something I'm taking him off my board because of it. But it is a red flag raise. And then you have Bo Nix, who had absolutely just giant mitts. Scott probably has the official measurements, but I think it was like 10 1/8, 10 1/4. So fun to see that. Penix with also the massive hands. Caleb Williams, big hands. So I think Drake May also had 9 1/8, 9 1/4. So a little bit smaller hands for some of those guys, but I don't think they were so small that it's like we're freaking out here, kind of like Kenny Pickett, where it's like a historical outlier. So we'll see. Boney's Bluff Gaming coming in, $4.99 super. Thank you so much, BBG. says it was 17 million on the Antoine Minfield tag. So he must be coming over from the other chat here. And
yeah, we were just talking about that on the other on the Falcons podcast on my channel. That's why we start a little late on Mondays here. We appreciate your patience. You can join us though. We're talking NFL draft, quarterbacks, combine, and everything. It's tailored towards the questions and the supers that we get asked, that's for sure. But one of them was actually from a Tampa Bay fan talking about who would you tag and trade, either Baker Mayfield or Antoine Winfield. And I said I'd much rather tag Antoine Winfield. And I said it's probably around 15. So we were close. Boney's Bluff Gaming, thank you so much. I said 15 off the top of my head. Sounds about right. And it was 17. So that's close. So I'd much rather tag a safety than a middle of the pack quarterback for sure on that one.
Unless you love the quarterback and you don't want to pay $60
I'm
million.
Pay him.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's true. If you love him,
I love the quarterback. I'm going to give him a contract, and I'm gonna work the cap in my favor.
Yeah.
Instead of giving him a 45 guaranteed, it's probably a little bit more than that now. With a 45 guaranteed on 1 year.
Does sound like the Patriots are interested in Mayfield, but that could be coming from Mayfield's side. So who knows? It's that time of year. Gatorade Gaming says, good morning. Always great to see you. We have Jeremy Sean talking about Nix and JJ likes them both. He says, I really like JJ, but expect a 21-year-old who wasn't the main part of the offense in college to immediately be the guy in the NFL is unrealistic. He should sit for a year if we pick him. I think that I don't know if he should sit for a full season, but it's one of those things. It's like, okay, we got 6 games left. The Jay Cutler kind of pathway where the Broncos were hovering around 500 with Jake Plummer. And then like, nope, we got that first round quarterback. Let's get him in there. But he does have the most non-play action under center dropbacks of any of the quarterbacks in the class this season. So the volume of passes isn't there, but what he's being asked to do, at least in theory, should translate more than Bo Nix. 90% of his throws go into the first read, and that's not his fault if the guy's open and that's the system. I mean, credit to Oregon for that, but it's a different conversation. Quarterback's hard, man. And I got to say, Scott, big picture here coming out of the combine for me with quarterback is that I think we're maybe slightly overhyping the talent available based on who I talked to and who is what I saw out there. I think that McCarthy and Daniels and May are all, top first round grade guys. I don't think they are so talented that it's no doubt 1, 2, 3, 4 coming out of the class. And the other thing I'm taking away from the combine, just speaking with boots on the ground, making some calls while I'm out here, is that the consensus is this is a top 4 draft class, and then there is a gap after McCarthy to the Nix, Rattler, Penix range with day 2 grades. Now, that doesn't mean one of those guys isn't going to go early because, you don't want to be the team to take the last quarterback on the run, but maybe you have the better guy there. We never know. I mean, the quarterback's really volatile, but I do think those are some of the big takeaways that I have at this moment coming out of the combine, talking to people, talking to agents, reps, coaches, et cetera, et cetera.
No, and I agree as far as like, it's not a sure doubt. The quarterback is so much better than everybody else. For me, it's a matter of they're good prospects, and they're going to get elevated because the teams drafting at the top usually don't have a quarterback, and they really don't in this case, except for possibly Justin Fields. But you can't roll into next season with Sam Howell if you're Washington when you've got a really good quarterback available to you in the draft. The Patriots, Bailey Zapp, no way. Not when I've got Drake May or Jaden Daniels staring me in the face. I can't do that. After that, then it becomes interesting. So if, let's say, even JJ McCarthy and Jaden Daniels swap spots, okay, this becomes a guy. The 4th quarterback is a little bit more of a wild card based on the teams that then need him. I think it's at 8. I think that's where the ceiling is on that guy.
The ceiling?
As far back as they'll drop is at 8 for the 4th quarterback.
You mean the floor?
Whatever. I think that's as far down as they fall.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Because I think it's coming off.
Or as you're
5.
going up the draft, you bump your head at 8. As you're counting numbers up. I think 4 quarterbacks go in the first 8 picks, unless the Falcons have their quarterback already. Then they become a prime trade candidate.
Yep.
Because again, 11 is big, right there. It's 8 and 11 are really the 2 teams that are quarterback needy. But hell, going into this thing, the Vikings could re-sign Kirk Cousins, and the Falcons could have Justin Fields, or vice versa. They could go with veteran quarterbacks, but then you've got to watch 13 if you're the Broncos. 12 and 13 are then the quarterback market. And if the Raiders try and come up above the Broncos, 8's the spot. 8's a key spot if the Falcons already have their quarterback.
There's so many quarterbacks in free agency too. We haven't even. Tannehill's been fine for Tennessee. It's not going to get anybody excited, but he's going to have a market. You'd expect. If not, you're going to get pretty competent quarterback for really cheap. I mean, like Brissett. There's the former early draft pick guys available. It's going to be fascinating. There is more competent quarterbacks available than there might be even seats. So what does that mean? Are we going to see backups get paid big money? I'm fascinated to see what happens here. Monica comes in here, says, "Hey Scott, not sure what you think about some of the players not wanting to measure, such as Williams and Harrison. Those red flags, arrogance, too early for these players. I think these players have the leverage, and I'm happy to see these players take power in that. They're still going to get measured by the teams that are in range for them. And it doesn't bother me that much. He still had Harrison, even though he hasn't measured, he's getting medicals still. So I don't know. I think this is good for players.
Measured, I think height and weight.
Yeah.
Okay. Now they've got measurements on him from the combine from somewhere. Marvin Harrison Jr., 6'3", 209 with 32-inch arms and 9.5-inch hands. Most of them will do the measurements.
I think.
Are they? I mean, otherwise there's really no reason to be there except for, interviews. They'll come for the interviews and that's it. But again, when you're sitting there and you've already put up a number, if I'm Caleb Williams and I'm Marvin Harrison, no one's coming above me at wide receiver. They're just not. The worst I'm going to get $25 million whether I do the combine or not. Guaranteed money. They're not coming out of the top 10. What do I have to gain? Now, I do like seeing the competitive nature of these guys. If the combine's good enough for Calvin Johnson, it's good enough for Marvin Harrison Jr. And I think Calvin, if I'm not mistaken, Calvin's the one that had the wrong shoes and put someone else's shoes on and then ran like a 4.38 or something at 6'3.5", 6'4", and 230 pounds. Probably the best wide receiver prospect of my lifetime is Calvin Johnson. Julio Jones, if it's good enough for him, and AJ Green, it's good enough for these guys. I like to see the competitive nature in these guys more than I really care about what they measure. I mean, that doesn't really make that big a difference to me.
Yeah. I don't imagine Marvin Harrison was measured. He didn't do the other stuff, but he was measured. Caleb wasn't, and some of the medical stuff too, but doesn't bother me too much. Jamal Killians, good morning. Nick Beckwith says, you're betting on JG what he'll be at 23 and 24 years old. I mean, that's true for most of these guys, right? It's like a lot of people don't. It's the projection of year 3, year 4 for those draft picks, not out of the gate.
Let me come back to this because it reminded me. So Jeremy said he needs to sit for a year and he's 21. Why? Matt Stafford was that age when he came out. Most third-year guys, it used to be quarterbacks that came out as juniors were usually redshirt juniors. They usually came out in their 4th year. True 3-year juniors were fairly rare. Michael Vick was a redshirt sophomore, so he was a 3rd-year guy. Matt Stafford was a 3rd-year guy. But I don't think you necessarily have to say, okay, he needs a redshirt year in the pros. Why? Do you not think that J.J. McCarthy could run the slimmed-down version of the offense that Russell Wilson did? I do. I think he could handle that. I think it's up to my coaching staff to not put too much onto their plate, to tailor their offense for what he can handle and get him playing. I disagree with it. He needs to sit for a year. I don't agree with that.
The only thing about sitting for a year for me was the actual physical stature of him. If he came in like at 205, it's like, we need some meat on the bones. It's one of the things that scares the hell out of me about Jaden Daniels, but came in 220, 224. Crazy. I think he weighed more than even maybe Drake May. I don't have the numbers in front of me. It'd be better. Only one screen here, folks. But we got Tiffany Silver coming in. Good to see you, Tiffany. Says, take best player available at any position. Also, Scott equals handsome. No argument here.
Well, thank you. I needed the ego boost today, and I was wondering. I was like, "Where's Tiffany been lately?" I'm starting to feel my age. I need, especially when your daughter asks you, "Why do you have a giant bald spot on the back of your head?" No, thanks. Where's Tiffany Silver when I need her? Remind me that I'm not an old curmudgeon. I am an old curmudgeon, but I don't feel like I have to look like one all the time.
How old is your daughter now?
How old's my daughter?
Yeah,
she's 12.
be like, "Oh, this bald start started about 12 years ago."
Yeah,
I
that's
think.
when it started. I had a full head of hair in 2011, kid.
Yeah.
That's not quite true either. So, um,
Robert
Robert
coming
Rupick,
in.
he says thoughts on why Milton's lower tier in the quarterback draft. And I saw Dan Wilkett over on Facebook. He says, check out Tennessee quarterback Joe Milton. Did you all see the flick of his wrist? 60-yard dimes. Oh, he's got a cannon. He's got, from a tools perspective, he's as talented as anybody in this class from height, weight, size, arm release. But when we talk about taking a guy that needs to sit a year, this is a guy who is the accuracy, the reading of the game is way off. And that's why he's not up there with other tools guys. He has trouble throwing from A to B consistently during the games, and that's a problem. So you're talking 4th, 5th round for him, and then see what happens. You're not drafting a guy in the 4th or 5th round at quarterback as your starter ever.
No.
If he ends up being a starter, that's either an emergency or you struck freaking gold while you were looking for something else. While I was digging up a stump, oil gusher came up. You have no idea what you were doing. You were just trying to clean up your yard. Milton's got tools, and he's absolutely worth putting on a roster the next couple years. But it's the quarterback play does not match the tools. It's not close right now, Nick.
Yeah, some of the timing stuff, just some of the accuracy stuff, it's just not fully there right now. He's been in college for a bit as well. If you remember, he was supposed to be the starter at Tennessee before Hendon Hooker, and then I think he got injured, and Hendon Hooker took off and played much better. So Milton's, he was a high draft pick or a high recruit from Michigan, then transfers to Tennessee. So he's not really a spring chicken either for the quarterback position.
Joe turns 24 on Wednesday, so happy birthday, Joe.
So that's a strike against him in my book.
Yeah,
He's already got that many
year
reps.
younger than Justin Fields.
Yeah, that's crazy. So really a lot of arm talent, but the other quarterback stuff, the arm talent is awesome if you have it, and it's something that it's tangible. So we love it when we see it, and it was fun to see him show off out there. But how many times a game do we see him actually have the chance to, double clutch the football and sling it like that in an actual NFL game? A lot of it's going to be more timing oriented. So again, like Scott said, take a shot on him day 3. If he hits, awesome. You have a much more paths to success when you have that much arm talent. So that's definitely worth a shot there, but has a long way to go as far as quarterbacking goes. William James Baker says, good morning, Broncos. London calling. Good to see you. Guys, there are reports that Thomas wide receiver are going to pick him up in free agency.
Michael Thomas.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I assume that means Judy and Patrick are out and pick a wide receiver in the draft, who we like at 3 pick plus, so the 3rd round. I haven't heard anything about Michael Thomas, but I haven't asked either. So we're following that market. I do think that there's a real good chance that Judy is gone based on what Mike Kliss reported last week, saying that Sutton's very likely back, and then pivoted to talking about moving Judy. Also, there's no way Patrick's back on his contract. So if he wants to come back on vet min because he's been here and everything, then that'd be great. I'd love to have him back. He's a great person. So I'm really pulling for him. I'm glad he got his money before he had those 2 season-ending injuries for him as a human being. But as far as round 3 in the draft, it's so hard to say right now, Scott, because after the showing at the combine, who's actually going to be there in the 3rd round? I did a mock before the combine where it's like, okay, this guy's draft range based on the experts is anywhere from pick 50 to pick 85. I can mock him at pick 76. That's fine. I had Ricky Pearsall going to the Broncos at pick 76. Well, guess what, folks? I think Ricky Pearsall is going to be going from pick 30 to 60 now. I don't think he's going to be making it to 76 for the Broncos. It's a deep wide receiver class. Anything can happen, I guess, but probably not going to happen. So wide receivers round 3 now that stick out to me. I think that you are talking about potentially a Troy Franklin. I think he is going to fall. I know he had back of the 1st round talk before. I think he's going to plummet. I don't think he's going to be there at all. You have Malachi Corley from Western Michigan. I think he's an option. Western Kentucky. I think he's an option out there. Both Xavier Legette and Javon Baker out of South Carolina and UCF are options, as well as maybe Devontae Walker. He scares me because he really struggled at the Senior Bowl with some of the hands stuff, but man, he's explosive, Scott. He's a big athlete. He jumped and tested great. So questions there, but I think there's going to be a lot of wide receivers that we talked about before that are not going to be there now.
You didn't mention Luke McCaffrey as a possibility because he was supposed to be day 3 and he could be day 2 now.
I think he's still day 3.
But he could definitely be an option. He could help you. And then the traits monster, and I'll keep saying because I'm going to keep watching him, is Johnny Wilson. 6'6" and change, 230 pounds, 4'5" with a 4.11 shuttle. Again, the worry on the bigger you are, the worry is the change of direction. So I see this really tall wide receiver. Okay, is he stiff? No. 4'11" means he can shake and bake. Means he can change directions in a hurry. That would make him an edge rusher candidate for me. Put another 20 pounds on this guy and put him on the edge. If he has trouble holding on to the ball, hell, just get him to block punts or block field goals. But Johnny Wilson will probably be available in the third. And you're betting on traits at that point. And I want to miss on a guy that's 6'7", running 4.5 with a 4.11 shuttle.
And Scott, I got a day 3 wide receiver here that really caught my eye. I had him written in the mock for me, and then I took him out because I wanted to go Ricky Pearsall round 3. But tell me if this sounds interesting to you, this athletic profile. So just under 6'3", 212 pounds, a 37.5 vertical, a 10-foot, 7-inch broad, a 4.45 40. That sounds pretty good. I mean, that's a big dude with a lot of testing. Cornelius Johnson out of Michigan, a huge traitsy player, but because the volume and everything there at Michigan really didn't have a chance to take off. This is bad scouting by me. I'll be the first to admit it, but an underutilized ball of potential athleticism that at Michigan wasn't fully developed. Do you remember Nico Collins coming out, fell to the 3rd round, really didn't get utilized so much, but man, the testing and the athleticism and the competitiveness was all there for Nico Collins coming out of Michigan.
Have that kind of testing coming out?
Oh, he tested pretty darn well from what I remember.
I'll look him up while you're talking, because I saw him at the Senior Bowl and I liked him. I just didn't remember him being okay. This was a traits monster that we like to talk about.
So, and one thing I love about Cornelius Johnson is he blocks his butt off.
He was pretty good. 6'4", 215, 4.43 with a 10.5 broad jump, a 4.29 shuttle, and a 6.78 L cone. Guys, when we talk about, hey, this guy's always open. He runs great routes. Check out their L cones.
Yep.
Check out their L cone scores. The guys that can get open are sub 7, and there's a reason why they get separation. It's because they can change direction at pace.
Yep.
And the L cones are really, really good indicators for wide receivers.
Unfortunately, a lot of the guys aren't doing agility testing because they don't love the track there for that at Indy, I guess. It's really pretty slick in those changes.
It's a straight line track.
It's a straight line one, but the change of direction, I guess. If they really want people to start doing the agilities, maybe they need to have them do it before the 40. But a lot of guys are backing out, sadly. Blave Bliss coming in. Good to see you. It's been a while, but he's got a schedule reset with a new job. Congrats to you, man. Good to see you again. Sean Burns in the house.
It's positive for us. We're glad you're here.
Yeah, absolutely. Sean Burns in the house. Run it back says J.J. McCarthy worth a top 10 pick and a future round pick. He wants to sell bridges to sell you in New York City. I mean, there are bridges to sell in New York City, at least, I guess. If you have one available, I'd take it. John Lopez comes in. I'm not probably trading a future first and whatever to go get McCarthy right now. I don't know. John Lopez says, good morning, guys. I watched the quarterback at the combine interviews. McCarthy sounds smarter than the rest. Sounds like a real team player. He has my vote if Peyton wants him. What Peyton wants, Peyton gets as far as within reason. But I think that we are slightly overhyping the overall talent of the quarterback class. Maybe this is just me being goo gaga for the wide receivers and the offensive tackles and the top 2 edge rushers coming out of the combine as well. But if the Broncos, I know a lot of people are hell-bent, it has to be quarterback. Peyton has to get his guy in. Maybe that is the case. But I'll tell you, man, there is so much worse than sitting there at 12 and taking one of the offensive linemen or the wide receivers that fall to you there, or even one of the top 2 edges, because, my God, this is a pretty darn special class at wide receiver and offensive tackle. And I can't believe the top 5, 6 offensive tackles in this. I mean, you know how much I've been hyping up Amarius Mims, and the question is still going to be the durability and medicals, and that's going to come down to the coaching staff, the background checks, the toughness, everything like that. But to test like he did at his size, the way he's carrying that weight, the last offensive tackle I can remember that looked like he was that big and athletic with that little fat on him was Tyron Smith. It's like he's built like a tight end, but he's 340. It's unbelievable watching him.
Tyron Smith was 245 pounds as a senior in high school. And I made him the number one. Well, I had some influence. I was the director of scouting, the number 1 offensive line prospect in the country. And then 3 years later, he was the first offensive lineman taken in the draft at 300 pounds. The guy I was comparing him to was Jonathan Ogden. it might be a little bit before your time. I think he was
I
coming out
remember
of
Ogden.
UCLA too. Ogden was a monster. Him and Baselli, I think, were either in the same class or right thereabouts. And then both of them were those franchise left tackles that both ended up in the Hall of Fame. I think Baselli did. I'm pretty sure Ogden did as well. While I'm saying, let me just look him up. But I bet he's got if I look him up on Pro Football Reference, he's got a bunch of stars next to his name for Pro Bowls and plus marks for all pros. Yeah, he was a four-time All Pro, Baltimore Ravens. One,
Yep.
2, 3, 4, and then he was Pro Bowl every year in the league, but his rookie year. Inducted as a player in 2013 into the Hall of Fame. God, I didn't realize it'd been that long. But that was who I was thinking of, was Jonathan Ogden, trying to make that comparison, just with the size and the agility, the svelteness of him. 6'9", 345. These guys were animals.
Yeah. Well, let's say hello to some of our Twitch people here. We got Wolfdam Wombat saying hi from Perth, Western Australia, 10:48 p.m. here. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, good to see you. Always like to say hello to our Twitch folks in here. I think there might even be another Twitch one. Yeah, Robot of Doom said last time I remember people throwing their hands and arms in the air about quarterback size. Joe Cool, the number 9 in Cincinnati. How good does he look? I really like Joe Burrow, but Scott, I'm of the opinion that Joe Burrow is slightly overrated. Just because I feel like people are always like, he's the 4th best quarterback in the NFL. I'm like, he's tier 3, but I might, there's a conversation for Prescott, Herbert, and some other guys in that Burrow tier.
What's 1 and 2? Is Mahomes in a tier by himself?
Mahomes is in a tier by himself, and then tier 2 for me is tied between Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen.
Okay. Yeah, I think Josh Allen's frequency of giving the ball away should knock him.
It does, but you look at the advanced stats, and he is such a huge part of the offense in terms of EPA that even when you account for the turnovers, he is the second highest EPA player in football. And the big reason for that, Scott, is despite the turnovers, he does not take sacks, period. And that is such a huge part.
Sometimes taking a sack might be preferable.
That's true, but the fact that his sack rate is so low, it has a huge impact on his value. So he's unbelievable. I think that he is probably, I don't think there's a team that puts more on their quarterback to go out there and just do something than the Bills do with Josh Allen.
Lamar Jackson's in that conversation too.
He is too. It's not as much of the goal line stuff though, where it's just like power, like we can just spam the quarterback power button. So it's, again, I have them tier 2 behind Mahomes. I think both are special, and I'm not going to argue special too much. Boney's Bluff Gaming coming in again with a super chat saying, does Denver have enough trade to move up to 8th to get JJ if Atlanta gets a free agent quarterback? Yes, they do. It's going to be hard because it's going to take 2025 picks. And I think teams are going to be playing pretty hardball with Denver to move up. They're going to be asking for that 2025 first round pick. I think Denver, within everything possible, needs to not give up a first round pick next year because the variance in value of a first round pick is so huge. Where like if you give up a round 2 pick next year, okay, pick 64 to pick 33, that stinks. That's a big range, but like pick 20 to pick 1, the difference in value there is huge. So really would be skeptical and trepidatious of giving up a future first to get a quarterback at 8.
Yeah, and let's see if the Falcons are there. If they don't get their quarterback before the draft and you want one of the 4 quarterbacks, you're going to have to get ahead of them. Mm-hmm. I think the safe one there would be 7 at Tennessee, safe-ish. But the wild card in here still is number 6, is the New York Giants. Yep. They could go quarterback. So, you end up trading to number 7, and then the Giants take J.J. McCarthy and reset the contract and move on because Daniel Jones really only got a 2-year deal. Mm-hmm. So he got a big contract, but it's really only a 2-year deal. This is the 2nd year of that deal. They can move on from him without much penalty. And the penalty isn't that much anyway if you get a rookie contract. So It offsets. So the sneaky team in here in the quarterback market is the New York Giants at number 6.
And they're in such a great spot too, because if it is 4 quarterbacks off the board early, then you have a chance at either Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors at pick 6. And that is not a bad place to be for a team that maybe wants to move back, or if they just want to sit there and take a quarterback. So definitely a team that you are looking for there with the with the Giants. So let's keep it going here. We all want to run a mock draft before we get on out of here. Saw another comment from Twitch. Oops, sorry, Scott.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Denver definitely looking at the Michigan quarterback. I think outside of Caleb Williams, Denver is looking at every single quarterback because Caleb Williams is probably not going to be drafted. The only team, not drafted, but not out of the first pick. I think the only team the Bears would be interested in trading with, Scott, is the Washington Commanders. So I think the Bears love Caleb Williams, but if Washington gives them an unbelievable offer, maybe the Bears like another quarterback close enough that it's, JJ McCarthy / Jaden Daniels / Drake May plus 3 first-round picks plus 3 second-round picks plus another starter. I mean, then you're starting to talk something, but it's going to take a Godfather type of deal for that to happen. But I guess coming out of the combine, there was some talk that Washington is making a aggressive bid to move up to 1 for Caleb Williams. I don't think it'll happen in the end, but at least worth keeping an eye on.
Michael Ronquillo says Wisconsin OL Tanor Bortolini also had a good NFL combine. That's an understatement. I think if people really understood the Elkhorn and shuttle, you'd realize how good Tanor Bortolini's numbers were. They were arguably, he had the best performance of anybody at the entire combine. Listening to Chad Reuter at NFL.com, he said yesterday afterwards, Bortolini joined Jason Kelsey as the only offensive lineman at the combine since 2003 to have a sub 4.3 shuttle. He was 4.28 and a sub 7.3 Elkhorn 3-cone. He was 7.16. Now, let me put those numbers into perspective for you. A 7.16 Elkhorn puts him on the leaderboard at cornerback. It puts him on the leaderboard at cornerback. It puts him on the shuttle, puts him, what I say it was, 4.28. It puts him 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th, 8th, with a couple of cornerbacks behind him. There were cornerbacks that finished behind center Tanor Bortolini out of Wisconsin. Corners. These are the most athletic people in the world on the whole, are NFL cornerbacks. That is absolutely insane. Okay, well, let's watch some tape on him. He's playing guard right here. And there, what I like about that, we talked about last year, Nick. It was unbelievable how poor that Cushenberry and either Reisner 2 years ago now, Reisner and Miners were at doing combination blocks. When one guy would whip around, he had a free pass every time. And I've seen guys at the Senior Bowl who have never played together do better than this. That wasn't hyperbole. Here's an example. This is a combination block. I've never seen him do 2-man drills like this before at the combine, but I like it. It's the teamwork that they're able to do right away. So he's a center prospect, and that's Dwayne Carter out of Duke. I mean, that's head-up one-on-one blocking. Now, they have the benefit of not having to go against Tavondre Sweat. This is Tyler Davis coming at him. Holds up nicely. Stays in front of him. Yes, they're getting pushed back, but you watch. Their first step is backwards. That's Gabe Hall out of Baylor that he's got at guard that he handles. And then the 11-on-11 stuff, I think I went to that. I usually put the one-on-ones towards the top. Another combination block here. He's just owning his guys. And he had literally an historic combine is what he had. So that is going to go on my YouTube channel here after the show. It's already uploaded. I just haven't published it yet. Tanor Bortolini had a historic NFL combine at center. He was phenomenal. And his tape at the Senior Bowl is good too. Where does he come in on the rankings? On PFF's big board, 209. 209. That's almost undrafted free agent. This guy shouldn't fall below the third. He should be going in the third round at worst.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that. I could see fourth just because it is such a talented offensive line class. But getting to the offensive line class, Scott, we need to run a mock here. It is Mock Draft Monday after all, and we're going to continue to talk combine and stuff, and obviously plenty of quarterback talk still down the stretch because of course, right? Broncos country hunting, and why wouldn't we not talk quarterback? But here we are at the simulator. Let me zoom in just a little bit. 7-round mock for the mock over on PFF. If you guys want us to use some other ones in here, use a super chat to start a show on Monday, and we'll listen. But no
you can
trades.
always get your quarterback at 12 on PFF, and usually you can get Jaden Daniels.
You can. And Benjamin Solak of The Ringer, who is doing an unbelievable job. Love Ben. Put it on an article this morning saying that more than a few teams he spoke with might have JJ McCarthy jumping Jaden Daniels in terms of the rankings. So we'll see. I think it is going to be May in the end at number 2. Scott, I think you're right when it says it reeks of CJ Stroud talk last season where he was started number 2 and like, oh, actually, maybe he's bad. Oh, actually, no, he's number 2.
Yeah, okay, that didn't work. We weren't able to get him out of that spot. Who should we target next? Because it started with Caleb Williams. There's been a smear campaign on Caleb Williams since Labor Day.
Yeah.
And that didn't work. And that's gone away now.
Yep. Yes. So we're on the board here now with the Broncos. Caleb Williams goes 1, Drake May goes 2, Malik Neighbors 3, Marvis and Harrison Jr. 4, Byron Murphy 5, Joe Alt 6, Roma Dunze 7, Terran Arnold 8, Cooper DeJean 9, Brock Bowers 10, and Nate Wiggins 11. Broncos have a lot of options on the board here. Not enough time to work in a trade down. Scott, this could be one where we just, take the quarterback here if we want to scroll down, but there's a lot of really good options here for the Broncos. Tulise Fuaga, if he's going to be a tackle or a guard, I'm not sure. You try him at tackle first, but if he's not a good tackle in the NFL, he's going to be a great guard. Keon Mitchell had an awesome week. Olufashanu actually stocked down a little bit. Tiny hands. Really weird there. The grip strength kind of showed issues on tape. I'm wondering if that's going to cause him to fall some. He also had an injury and didn't partake in some of the stuff. Dallas Turner, unbelievable combine. I think he's the one who stands out here for me a good bit. You also have Jared Verse. JC Latham had a really good field drill out there. I feel like he's kind of a forgotten man, but he dropped 20 pounds and was awesome out there. There's Jaden Daniels. Amarius Mims was incredible. Troy Fontenot. Troy Fontenot is unbelievable. I think he could play 5 spots on the offensive line. I mean, talk about a super player. 34.5 arm length. Just because he's a little short, some people think he's a guard, but I think he could do all 5 spots and be awesome. And then you have JJ McCarthy. So really going after all these names that I'm mentioning here, if you don't love one of the quarterbacks, you see if you can trade down to pick 15 to 20. Somebody's still going to be there. But I'm going to leave it to you on this one. I've kind of taken the ship over on a lot of these. Do you just want to take the quarterback and be done with it?
I mean, you've got to. There's no way you don't take. You've got JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix, and Jaden Daniels all available. There's no way you don't take a quarterback at 12 with those guys on the board. No way. And that's the thing about this simulator is it's going to be the same thing every time because of where they've got these guys ranked. So you're taking Jaden Daniels.
You're taking Jaden. Okay. I think the Broncos might actually end up having JJ McCarthy higher. Just because I worry about
either way.
Daniel.
I could live with, either way. I'm probably going Jaden Daniels right now, but I could go JJ McCarthy, but I'm probably going Jaden Daniels here first.
Okay.
I don't think they get past, I don't think those 4 quarterbacks get past 8, let alone where they've got them ranked.
Yeah.
And it just feels like a glitch almost, like, okay, I can beat the system every single time. And it's not realistic. And we want to try and give you a more, what's fun is the realistic options. Now, JJ McCarthy there's a possibility is available at 12. I think it's a smaller possibility, but it is possible. But if you look at those names, yeah, there's a lot of players to get excited about if the quarterback that you like isn't there, or it's too high to take him. Again, if I've got a quarterback, my next quarterback on the board, I've got him in the 40s. I don't want to take him at 12. There's a lot of good players available at 12. You can get an impact guy at a premium position. And frankly, what's starting to make the most sense to me, Nick, is Garrett Bowles is gone. I have to get my tackle in a deep tackle class and shore up the second most important position historically for the next decade.
I would still say a pass rusher, but
historically, the second high, you can go by money. And historically, it's changed a little bit. That's why I said historically. Okay. The second highest paid guy in the NFL was always the left tackle, going up through the last until recent last few years.
I think wide receivers are paid more than tackles these days.
Exactly. Even, so now I would say the edges and wide receivers are probably getting paid more, and I'd still rather have a Pro Bowl left tackle than a Pro Bowl wide receiver.
The issue with that, Scott, is that looking at the board here, the tackles fall off a cliff after about pick 50.
Which is why if you've got a hole at left tackle, I would rather take my left tackle at 12 than reach for a quarterback. But in this, I don't have to reach. I can get one of the top 4 guys.
Yeah. So we are on the board here, and I think it is a wide receiver or tackle conversation. There is one tackle left that I think is has the tools that could end up a starter, but there's obviously flaws because he is available this late, and that is Patrick Paul. Really good tester, big. He has leverage issues. He's a little stiff, sometimes issues with the hands, but huge and a good mover and incredible length. So he stands out for me. If not him, I probably lean Xavier Legette. Came in. He's a thick wide receiver, tested pretty well. Not as big as he was listed at height wise. Also, he's older, which scares me a bit for wide receiver too, Scott. He was more of a special teams guy. So there is some concern there, but those are the 2 guys that stand out for me looking at the board here in the positions of value for the Broncos. Do like Nealand, do like Sweat. I think Sweat's going to fall a little bit. I think this is probably the range, but I might wait on him, honestly, Scott, a little bit here. After that, I mean, God, it's really, we talk about this draft and how it kind of falls off. I'm scrolling down. It's like, oh, I don't love it. I don't love it. I don't love it. If you can get top 50 picks, top 60 picks all day. But right now, starting about the mid-third, it starts to really fall off.
I would go wide receiver here, and I would cheat this system because PFF has Roger Rosengarten at 187. And I would target him with my pick 146.
So you're leaning wide receiver.
I'd go wide receiver here while I still can. And then I would target my tackle later on because I can cheat the system here.
Yeah, I really do not love how it sets up overall. We talked about Cornelius
Luke McCaffrey again. I'd target him with my next pick too.
Yeah. I think sitting here, if you are going wide receiver, it probably should be Xavier Legette. I know the Broncos are looking at it hard to get some guys in here. Nealand is still in there. He'd be a fine pick here. You really fall off at edge too, unfortunately. Man, not having that 2nd round pick. I know we're happy to have Sean Payton, Scott, but God bless it, I'd love to have that round 2 pick back.
Well, you did get a 3rd back from that one.
Then you gave it up for Riley Moss.
No, that wasn't Sean Payton's trade. That was Sean Payton's general manager, which is questionable for me. Real quick, while you're deciding, I'd go wide receiver here more than likely.
Okay. Gonna go Xavier Legette.
Pearl asked, what's the projected salary of a 1st-round draft quarterback rookie contract? The rookie contracts, it's just a 5th-year option that treat them like franchise tag, which I don't know why. The contracts are slotted based on where you are picked. So the number 12 pick in the draft last year was Jahmyr Gibbs, and his contract was 4 years, $17.8 million across, and his initial salary cap hit was $3.2 million. So his salary cap hits in his 4 years at the number 12 pick goes 3.2, 4.1, 4.9 to 5.7. And then the 5th-year option, which is getting into why do I even give a crap about the 5th-year options anymore on quarterbacks, the 5th-year option jumps to, assuming he just is a regular player and doesn't even make a Pro Bowl, the 5th-year option jumps to $26 million. And if he makes a Pro Bowl, it jumps to 34. If he makes 2 Pro Bowls, it jumps to 38. The 5th-year option for quarterbacks right now is bunk.
It really is bunk. I mean, pretty much just not even going to be used. But if you have a guy, I mean, I think that makes the 1st round versus 2nd round not matter as much as it used to be thought of. So we're back on the board here, Scott.
It's so stupid how they set that up. It still makes me mad.
Yeah. We're going to see if it changes here soon. But we're on the clock again here with the Broncos. We've taken a quarterback and a wide receiver. We're on the board again. Could use defensive line, could use a lot of things. But the 2 guys who really stand out here for me, Scott, looking at the board, are the top 2 tight ends. You got Ben Sinnott, who he's kind of a little bit more of a Greg Dulcich-esque role, but tested really well. He had good tape there at Kansas State. And then you had the athletic freak.
Theo tested like a freaking monster.
Theo Johnson. Yep. I do think he has a little bit of Noah Fant to him, but Noah Fant's been one of the top 10 most productive tight ends in football over his rookie contract, which is crazy. So round 4 for a guy of that athletic profile, I think sign me up. I think that's the way I got to go here.
Let's see, as I'm looking at this, I don't mind going Max Milton, where I think I could have gotten, then I could have gotten
there he is.
But I could have gotten Theo at 122. And then I could get Roger Rosengarten at 146, and at 230, maybe I can get Tanor Bortolini.
Maybe get Tanor Bortolini down there. Unfortunately, we did see. I took Theo
Milton
Johnson there.
You probably could have gotten Theo on this board, working the system. The problem is this board is everybody's board.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the AI's board, so I get to cheat. I get to see what Pro Football Focus is thinking for every team. You don't know that in real life.
No, we do not. Unfortunately, that I like Sanat and Theo Johnson enough that I probably should have gone with Milton, because I think one of those tight ends probably is still there. But hey, you know what? You live and learn. It's just for fun. It's an exercise in the end. Scott, we say trenches, but are we phonies? We've got 3 picks so far, and it's been quarterback, wide receiver, tight end. Are we fantasy football losers? What's going on here?
Aside from your offensive line is fairly well set, except for your center. Again, that's where I'm getting Tanor Bortolini in here somehow. We'll run it and hit pause at 200 and make a trade up for my center. But your offensive line is fairly well set. I got to go deep. I got to get a 300 pounder in here somehow, though. DL on the defensive line.
Defensive line is not looking so good here. You do have Dwayne Carter. McKinley did not have a great combine, but he's still a big boy.
McKinley Jackson is what concerns me right now with the Denver Broncos. He's quick, but he's not that great at the point of attack. No. Marcus Harris is a nice little player. He's about 285. He's a little bit of an in-betweener, though. Keith Randolph and Tyler Davis. Tyler Davis has a little bit more size to him at Clemson, defensive tackle.
Wingo had a heck of a combine. I like enough of these defensive tackles here, Scott, that I might punt on this. I don't know if you saw how well Logan Lee tested. He's a little small, but with how Denver playing that attacking style front right now, I think that he makes a lot of sense as a 4-3 technique. He tested really well.
Logan Lee with a 4.37 shuttle time. That was tied with Braden Fisk for number 2 overall. Yes, please.
Yeah, I like enough of these defensive tackles still here that I might punt on
Logan Lee came in at 281. That's okay.
Yeah.
But you're looking, again, it shouldn't be that hard to replace Jonathan Harris.
Yeah, I think the move here is, even though he's a little bit further down the board, and there's Cornelius Johnson, that's one reason maybe a wait on wide receiver. I like him a lot. But you mentioned him earlier. I think he's going to go higher than this, but I think if we don't take him now, he's going to be gone. And that is Rosengarten, the tackle.
Roger Rosengarten's really good.
I
really like him. He shouldn't make it out of the 3rd.
I agree. God, Sanat is still here. That is unbelievable. Trey Benson, he tested great. Maybe you're starting to talk running back down this far as well. Zach Zinter is a really versatile player, but I think this is also a spot, Scott, where we take your other guy coming down here. I think we're just going to take some of the values here. Let's take Bortolini right here.
Yeah, we'll get slated for that.
That's okay.
But I bet you he doesn't go past 150 on draft week.
So unfortunately, the defensive line has not been touched one bit. But
we're gonna have to go free agency and get some $2-3 million guys in here.
This is what happens when you have so few draft picks. The Broncos did get a positive. Owuzurike is going to have to reinstate for the league, but he's been charged of all felony and criminal charges. So he is going to be back next year, and he's still going to have 3 years left of cost control. So that's an interior defensive lineman who maybe can be a part of the fold for you in the end. So now we're on the clock.
Definitely a big body you could use.
Yeah.
Wish he would have been told offensive tackle when he was 16 years old.
Yeah. So we're on the board here for the Broncos, still looking pick 230. The one who stands out for me here, Scott, is Jalen Ford.
You need a linebacker.
Talking about safety, he's got a big body, he's got some special teams ability, and you could use another linebacker as well.
Yeah, you absolutely need a linebacker coming out of this. Josie Jewell's likely not going to be re-signed. If you're moving Ben Sanders, then you've got returning from injury Jonas Griffith and Alex Singleton. I need a 3rd guy to come in for sure.
So now we're on the board again here.
You're making me dizzy on this thing.
It's going too fast. I'm sorry. I'll slow down. Not the best value here at this point. You got Jared Wiley.
You already took a tight end.
I'm not against taking 2 at this late, at least.
There's not a bad center right there, but I think we got our center already. The kid from Florida is not bad.
No, yeah, not
He's
bad
the
at
other
all.
Kingsley.
Yeah, he's interesting without a doubt. We just took a linebacker. So, I mean, heck, I'm not even against taking Mayan Williams here, just a running back chance, or Marcellus Dial. Not a bad option as well. He is, where is he at here? 6 foot, 195, redshirt senior. Haven't taken a cornerback yet. Pretty far down the board. Already took a quarterback, so you're not looking at your day 3 kind of guys. Is there any positions you want me to filter here?
No, it's fine. You're what are we? Last pick of the draft here, 237.
Yep.
Yeah, just get who you think might be the best player. Position doesn't really matter.
At this point, I like Marcellus Dial. He did enough for me there. So we're going to get dinged on some of these picks, Scott, but I think we're just taking advantage of the board a little bit at this point. Yeah, Theo Johnson, F.
I told you we were going to get dinged on those. They really don't like those picks. Okay, look at the numbers. Theo Johnson, 157, 187, and 209. I'll take the over on each. I'll take the under on each one of those guys compared to PFF.
Me too.
They haven't done any adjustments really since the combine.
Yep. So I think they did actually, but we'll see it again. But also, I wish they could implement some other boards. But guys, that's going to be it for us on this one. We ended up going the quarterback on this one. We will see if the Broncos end up going that way or if they bring in a quarterback before that. Who knows? They're definitely hunting. I think we're going to see the Broncos be active. I think we're going to see some moves coming up in the next 10 days. So should be a lot of fun. Thank you guys for joining us today. Make sure you're following Scott on Twitter at Scott Kennedy. I'm at Nick Kendell MHH. Also follow us at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, join us at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. And as the ticker says here underneath, please subscribe, like, and share over on social media. Scott, any final thoughts? We didn't even get to talk too much about the defensive line guys who stood out. At some point, we got to maybe just talk, the defensive linemen who make sense at 12, the offensive tackles who make sense at 12, something like that. But any final thoughts?
No, I think, free agency's coming up. And if Justin Fields is traded before free agency, Russell Wilson is cut, we should get some of those dominoes starting to fall where we get an idea of who's in, who's out on quarterback. And it's really going to matter with Minnesota Vikings. It's really going to matter with the Atlanta Falcons, who are 8-11. They're ahead of you and have more money. Those are bad things to be if you're the Denver Broncos. You want them to re-sign Kirk Cousins and trade for Justin Fields and take quarterback off the board for you. Then either one or both are trade options to move up if you feel like you need to do that to get your quarterback.
Yep. So we're going to see. It's going to be a lot of fun to see how it plays out. And the Broncos are no doubt hunting for a quarterback. We'll see what that means in the end. But if they don't get one this time, they're going to figure it out. I trust Peyton to get it right. And the one thing also, Scott, I think Peyton's got pretty unbelievable job security that probably he's got 3 more draft cycles to get it right out there. So it doesn't have to be now. I know Broncos country doesn't want to hear that. And one of the big regrets a lot of coaches have is that they didn't take the quarterback when they had a chance. So if they have a chance at a guy they like to love, not just like, then they should swing. But it doesn't have to be one at the same time.
I have a big concern with Sean Payton. And as far as you say the job security, he drafts impatiently. We saw it. We've seen it for years. We saw it last year where you're giving up picks to move up. Does he have the patience to build this team for a 4-year plan? I don't know. I don't trust in that.
Yeah.
I don't want him giving up picks to move up. If anything, move down and accumulate more picks and get some more players in here. Good players, cost control contracts, et cetera, and build some depth. You really lack depth in some key areas.
Yeah, it's true. We'll see. The Broncos are hunting. That's all you can say. If it's not now, then they're going to be hunting again. But one thing I will say is that if the Broncos do stick at 12 or they trade back a little bit, you're going to have a chance at some pretty good players. And I keep thinking about this, Scott. This is a conversation for another day. The Broncos did really good to not skip out on the 2021 draft class and then not skip out on 2024. The last 2 drafts in the top 10, not as good. So if there was 2 years to not have your first round pick, 2022 and 2023 seem like the year if you're looking at a 4-year sample size. So happy to be here this year. That kind of worked out for the Broncos in the end. So not the trade itself, but if you had to pick. So thank you guys so much. Thank you, Michael Ronquillo, coming in here with the Stars, saying great show today. Nick and Scott and Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos. Go Ronk. Ronk around. We appreciate you guys. Have a great rest of your week. Happy Monday. Choose kindness and compassion. Go Broncos.